What is up, YouTube? Today we have a pretty interesting update from Project L. As you can see, Tom Cannon, the director of Project L, made this tweet with a 2-minute 10-second video, and the biggest information in this video, the biggest update, was that Project L will be free to play. Now, before I get any further into the video, I do want to give a proper introduction to Tom Cannon and Tony Cannon, his twin brother, because they are basically legends in the fighting game community if you have not heard of them already. First, you Google Evo Championship Series, the biggest open bracket fighting game tournament in the world every year, and they're the co-founders, Tom Cannon and Tony Cannon. Tony Cannon also developed GGPO rollback netcode, which is used by a lot of fighting games to make their online experience better and playable with that good old rollback netcode. And now they work at Riot on Project L, and Tom Cannon is the director of Project L, and Tony Cannon, I believe, is the tech lead on Project L. So yeah, this is kind of old news. We've known this for a while now that Project L is in very, very good hands. So let me just go ahead, take a look at this video on YouTube where the quality is a little bit better. First, can we take a look at the gameplay in 60 FPS? We didn't get to see the gameplay in 60 FPS in the first update, but man, it actually looks amazing. The hit effects, the animations, it just looks so smooth and crispy, for lack of a better word. Everything just looks like it has so much impact, and it looks like it's going to be very fun to play. I'm happy to confirm that Project L will be free to play. So he confirms that Project L will be free to play, and I think a lot of us were expecting it. That's why he says it doesn't come as a surprise. Valorant, League of Legends, they're free to play. They use a free to play model, and Riot's the same company, so I think most people expected Project L to be free to play, but we weren't sure, so this confirmation is good news to hear. Now this second point, just about how they're going to go about the free to play model. Some free to play models can be very exploitative, but I think they are going to try to be respectful, not engage in any malicious behaviors, and that's what we would like to see in a free-to-play game. The last update he gives, apart from the free-to-play business before, is that Alawi will be in the game. I'm not familiar with who this is. I haven't played League of Legends, but there is a dev blog post that goes into the character design, the artwork, how they fit her into the narrative. So I think that's a pretty interesting read. If you're interested in that, I'll leave it in the description, so check that out. But let's get into the meat of this video about free to play. So what's the big deal? Why is free to play so good? Well, first, you and I, the hardcore fighting game fans, we're gonna save like $60. We don't have to spend money to play the game. We're just gonna be able to play the game for free, so that's great right off the bat. The second thing, and I think it's like a much bigger point, is that a lot of people with that removed barrier of entry will be able to try the game without having to pay, and maybe really like it and keep playing fighting games, be introduced to them, and we'll have a lot more fighting game players potentially because this game is free for them to try out. And if you weren't convinced that just making a game free could increase numbers by that much in the player base, Maximilian Dude made this tweet about Multiversus. If you don't know what Multiversus is, it's a platform fighter with a lot of iconic characters. Shaggy, you can see Batman, Arya Stark somehow, Tom and Jerry, Superman, Bugs Bunny. It even has LeBron James somehow. So crazy game, crazy time we're living in. But the big point here is that it is free to play, and there are 100k or were 100k concurrent people playing it on Steam, and possibly 200k across all platforms because the game is also on Xbox and PlayStation. If we compare that to a game like Street Fighter V, a very popular fighting game, especially at its launch, it only peaked 13,000 players on Steam and 6,000 concurrents, which is much lower. To be fair, most people I think were playing on PlayStation, so maybe we could like triple this number to 15 or 16k, but it's still much lower than what Multiversus is at. as a free-to-play game. Another argument you can make is that it's because of the characters. Like it has really cool characters in it. That's why so many people want to try it out. They want to play Arya Stark, they want to play Batman. But I have another counterpoint to that, something that I think supports the point that free-to-play is very important to the numbers, and that is Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. If you don't know about Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, it was also it is also a platform fighter with very iconic characters. You can see SpongeBob SquarePants for one at the top there, and I feel like when it was released, people were expecting it to be just as big as Multiversus currently is now, or they had big hopes for it at least. But the game comes out and it's $49.99. $49.99 for this game. And the characters, I would argue, are, maybe not as loved as the characters in Multiversus, but it has a absolutely crazy roster as well. You got SpongeBob SquarePants, Patrick Star, Sandy Cheeks, Aang, Toph, Katara, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I didn't watch much Nickelodeon, so I don't know the rest of these characters. I'm sorry. Don't be mean to me in the comments, but there are a lot of very lovable characters here, and I think the numbers being low is not because of the characters. And you can see the numbers right here. It peaked at 9,000 people playing on Steam, and over the first month, the average was only 1,400, about 100 times less than Multiversus. You can see the game clearly fell off. I think the biggest reason for that was the game doesn't have any voice acting, which is a cause for concern when you're playing the game and no one's talking. It feels kind of weird. So that's why it kind of dropped off very fast actually from the start. But even initially, the peak players is 10 times less than that picture, which might not even be the peak that Multiversus was at. 100,000 people concurrent. So I think that's a solid argument for why free to play is very good for a game. You get a lot of people, as shown by Multiversus. I think one of the first fighting games, maybe the first fighting game that has free to play. It's kind of showing us what we thought might be possible, but it's bringing it to reality in terms of the numbers. So why would a company not do this? Well, the big reason is that it is a huge risk to the company just financially, right? They spend all this millions of dollars in development, in making the game, making it a good, solid, polished product. And because it's such a huge risk, I think for a company, because they're betting on their game succeeding and people liking it and buying skins and other things that will enhance their time playing the game. So this has me extremely optimistic on Project L, because they expect free to play to be better for them financially than a paid version would. They expect people to enjoy the game and pay for things. So what are the downsides then? If the company Riot is supposedly going to profit from this, how is this good for us, the consumer? Is it potentially going to be bad for us? Are there going to be any downsides? So I'm going to use Valorant as my main example. It's Riot's first-person shooter. Because I've played Valorant, I haven't played League, so obviously I have more experience with Valorant and how their free-to-play system works in Valorant. I think the biggest downside potentially is if you have to pay for characters, and if it's hard to actually get the characters without paying for them. And I'm hopeful this will not be the case in Project L, because the way that it works in Valorant is that you can unlock characters very quickly. I think in a couple of days, once a character drops, I normally have the character by then, just by playing matches. I have all the characters in Valorant, I think 20 of them, just by playing the game. I haven't paid a single dollar for a character. I think the situation is a little bit different for League. I think I've heard there's over 100 characters for League of Legends. So I think it's impractical to try and get all those characters, but really why would you want 150 characters unless you're like a pro player. I feel like you're not gonna play all 150 of them. I think Valorant is much more comparable to a fighting game. Like I think a fighting game would only have like maybe 40 characters, at least at the start. So I feel like it will be very feasible to actually obtain the characters in Project L. Well, how is Riot going to make money if they're not going to be selling characters really to most people, and they're not going to be making money off the base game? I think the answer is pretty simple. It's going to be skins for characters, stages as well for fighting games, possibly like new animations for a super move. If you just have like a super move that goes into an animation, I feel like they could just replace that into something cool, so you could buy like an animation for a super. I feel like that would be a good idea, but I don't know the exact numbers. I doubt Riot has released how much money they've made off of Valorant skins, but I can say personally that I have spent much more than like $60 on skins for Valorant. Riot has done a very good job at making me spend money on their free-to-play game. So when it comes to Project L, if it takes off, I feel like I am definitely going to enjoy the game a lot, and I personally probably won't be saving money by them doing a free-to-play approach. I'm guessing if they make skins and stages as good as they did in Valorant and make the game as addicting as their other games are, people will pay for them, and Riot will profit. We'll all enjoy the game, and it'll just be a win-win situation where a lot of people will be playing the game and enjoying it. So I guess the final question is, are there going to be any other games going with this free-to-play approach? And the game that I'm looking most at is Street Fighter 6, you know, because I'm obviously a Street Fighter 5 player, and this is probably the biggest fighting game coming out to rival Project L, and it seems like will either come out next year or like early 2024. So do I think Street Fighter 6 will be free to play? I think if I had to bet, I would not bet that Capcom would make Street Fighter 6 free to play. In the past, they haven't really taken much risks, especially with Street Fighter 5 at the start. I think the design even was not very risk-taking of them. They've been traditionally a risk-averse company, I think, and I think most like Japanese companies are. That's kind of a divide between, I guess, American and Japanese video game companies. But I wouldn't say the chance is zero. There's been, you know, pressure obviously from Project L now because they've announced it. Multiversus has been free to play. It's not exactly a traditional fighting game, but it's closer than a lot of other video games are to being in the same genre. So I think possibly because of the pressure from the market, from their competition, Capcom might decide to, and I definitely hope they will, because if Street Fighter 6 is free to play, along with all the other amazing footage they've shown us of the story mode, cool gameplay, even the roster that got leaked, like Street Fighter 6 is looking really good. I'm excited to play at EVO this weekend, and you know, if it is free to play, I feel like Street Fighter 6 could be really big. I hope Capcom goes that route. I don't expect them to, but I think there's a chance. Anyways, that's going to be it for this discussion. Let me know in the comments what you think about free-to-play for fighting games. Do you think Street Fighter 6 should have it? Do you think it's a good decision for Capcom financially to make it free-to-play? What do you think about Project L being free-to-play? Are you surprised by that? Hit that subscribe button down below. You know, there's no risk in doing so, only reward, because you get to see great content like this. Leave a like and comment as well down below, and I will see you in the next video.